As dairies grow, scale, and manage across multiple sites, the challenges become more complex. Yet, the basics of good management become more important than ever. In this episode of the Uplevel Dairy Podcast, we sit down with Dr. Blaine Nicks, Director of Herd Operations at Jager Ag, and Joshua Stroud of Bauer Ag, as they share how they approach the challenge of managing large-scale dairies with a clear focus on milk quality, team leadership, and daily execution. From training people to trusting systems, these two boots-on-the-ground leaders are making it work in real time. That and more right here today on the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Bauer Ag. Bauer Ag is the parent company uniting the Dairy Solutions Group, dairy specialists, and ag property solutions. Together, they strive to elevate farm operations through out-of-the-box thinking and problem-solving, new technology, and a network of locations positioned for growth. Find more information in the show notes to contact Bauer Ag. We are sitting down here today, and you each come from a different side of the industry, but there are some places where ICU paths intersect and parallel, not just on what you do, but really the way that you look at the work that you do and the emphasis that is on building those teams, but also really looking at taking care of the cow at such an elevated level that really goes from, that one end of the cow to the other, from the ground to the product, and this full picture approach. And so what I would like you to do as we start out here is I just want to hear a little bit more about you and your personal stories of how you got to where you're at. And so, Blaine, I'm going to start with you. So just take a moment, introduce yourself of, who you are, what you're doing now, and then we'll take a minute to also talk about how you got to where you're at.
Yeah, so my name's Blaine Nicks. I am the Director of Herd Operations for Jager Ag in Colorado. Here we're milking about 9,500 cows on 3 sites. I took that job after leaving vet practice 3 years ago, I guess it was already. Prior to that, my journey started. I somehow decided to go to vet school after growing up in town and not having much of an agricultural background. Did vet school, decided dairy is my thing. I don't think I knew what that meant in hindsight of where the industry was, especially coming from kind of small farm, Iowa, Wisconsin type area. Left vet school, practiced in Wisconsin for 2 years, went to California, practiced for a year, and then kind of was seeking out a job here at a practice in Colorado that it was and still is kind of on the cutting edge of doing more consulting, being ahead of the game, providing really good value for clients. In that time, I formed some relationships, had a couple kids, didn't like airplanes as much as I used to, and took the job with the Jager family here in Colorado. It's 2 brothers in Colorado started it, and I'm Director of Operations, meaning I'm in charge of anything cow related and people related essentially. And so I'm kind of a chief cat herder, make sure everybody's moving in the right direction, that we have a good goal in place and we're meeting our benchmarks and meeting the goals we set in place for ourselves.
And Josh, you are with Bauer Ag.
Yes.
And so tell me a little bit about your role here and how you ever got to doing what you're doing.
Joshua Stroud, Director of Cow Care for Bauer Ag. So I moved to New Mexico my sophomore year of high school, and I got into this role of service on the ag side, dairy side, and I fell in love with pulsation, CIP, just the whole gamut of how we're milking cows. I surrounded myself with some really cool people in this industry and just fell in love with it. And I started off doing service work, and then it led into troubleshooting, and it led into mastitis management, people management. I had a pretty cool opportunity arise. A family farm hired me on to be a milk quality manager. I really enjoyed that, and it helped me understand both sides of the fence. From the dealership's perspective, large herd management. Those dairies moved on to another location and got into the corporate world for a few years. and ended up here at Dairy Specialist, which turned into Bauer Ag. But building teams, milking cows, solving problems, creating relationships with our customers.
So building teams, solving problems, and in your background in milk quality was something that you and Blaine had in common, correct? I feel like I'm asking you like this is like a couple show, but how did the two of you meet?
Sure, we just talked about that earlier. I'll let Blaine chime in. We were getting the dairies mixed up.
Yep. And stop me at any point if you remember this differently, but it was shortly after I moved to Colorado. We were working in parallel at a dairy, without meeting each other, kind of going down the same goals, but hadn't crossed paths yet. My recollection of Colorado when I got here is the vets didn't play well with the nutritionists, didn't play well with the equipment people, and it was kind of a compartmentalized area and industry with a lot of finger pointing. And in California, I had a little bit of an insight. I had a nutritionist we worked with that knew that we were very young and kind of worked very well with us and took us under his wing. And I saw that you could have good relationships with these arch nemesis that you work with. So I was preg checking at a dairy in Eastern Colorado, and Josh just happened to be there that day. So we finally connected, got to know each other, and then started to work a little bit closer at the same time, at the same place, towards the same goals with good communication and kind of clear expectations of where we think we should be moving forward.
So what were some of those commonalities that really just sunk in for the two of you?
Well, this farm in Eastern Colorado, we're troubleshooting some somatic cell issues, mastitis, and fine-tuning, optimizing some equipment. And, at the end of the day, vet's background and our background, we brought the two together and, from the cow side, from the equipment side, and that's kind of where the marriage started, I would say. And then took that approach to the customer and united front. You're better as one team, instead of going two different directions. So just making the farmer a believer, that, hey, this is just as important as this side of the business, and how one impacts the other and how we all need to be communicating, whether it's the nutrition side, the vet side, herd manager, dairy owner. So that's kind of where it all started.
Right from the early onset of the relationship, I knew that Josh thought very similarly to how I did. You do the simple things right, and in general, things will take care of themselves. There's no silver bullet. There's nothing that you can do really any fancier that's going to allow you to cut corners. So we focus on, I guess, the blocking and tackling, making sure that we checked all the boxes. And if we do those things, we should have a good outcome.
So both of you are now part of these fast-paced, fast-growing, multi-site businesses. You in dairy production, you on the dairy service side. Yes. And so when you reconnected and with Blaine now as a manager of operations of Cows and People, and you with your milk quality expertise, was there certain challenges that that you started to call each other and really lean on the expertise that Josh had for challenges that you might have been facing?
Yeah, the first example happened extremely quickly after I changed jobs. So I took over a new position. I changed our liners and I made our milkers strip cows. And shortly after that, we had a really bad cold snap of -30, -40 degree temperatures. We weren't using the right dip. We had cracked teats. Everything was set me up for everybody on the dairy be able to point the finger and be like, what did you do? How did you break this so bad? And I knew, no, this stuff works. It was the weather, but I had to gain everybody's trust and make sure that they knew that I had some good ideas that we could execute them, and I gained some confidence with them. So I got a hold of Josh. I had historically used those dip products to dig myself out of holes at my old job. So, hey, we need to get this stuff in here now. We need to get some skin condition on here. So we sat down, came up with the plan of this is going to be our dip strategy to get us out of this hole that we're in. And then moving forward, how are we going to manage this throughout the year? So it's not our philosophy is not to have a one-size-fit-all dip program. We make constant adjustments throughout the year depending on temperature, depending on humidity, depending on weather patterns that come through. And we'll rotate dips through and just kind of optimize our teat condition. If we keep our teat condition well, we seem to have much better success than when we have a lot of chapped and cracked teats.
Yeah, and you talk about these challenges, but Blaine, one thing that that we didn't go into detail about was your challenges of management include 3 different sites and some very different styles of milking. So do you want to just do a quick overview of the operations that you manage and what some of the challenges are individually in those different systems?
Yeah, we have two sites that function as one dairy where we have a double 50 and a double 35 parallel. At the larger dairy, that's where we calve everything, we breed everything there, and then we move them to the smaller dairy once they become pregnant. Just logistically making sure that people are communicating, moving things around, that we're feeding cows properly, because we do not keep all commodities at both dairies. So we run premixes from the bigger dairy to the smaller dairy. So there's some challenges there. Trucking cows isn't fun and takes a whole nother set of making sure the right person's in the position, making sure equipment's well maintained. But fortunately, we've got very good middle management that takes care of most of that stuff, and I can rely on them pretty heavily to manage more of the day-to-day, being there every second of the day, making sure this stuff happens well. So without them, we couldn't function. We wouldn't have the success that we have. And then our other dairy, we're milking about 2,000 cows on robots. We're learning. We're getting better. We switched to manure solids about 2 years ago. It's been a challenge to figure out how we keep those beds clean, how we keep lanes clean while the cows are there all the time. In a traditional parlor or traditional dairy, you take for granted that 3 hours a day that the cows are gone, that you can get a lot done in the pens. In a robotic dairy, they're always there. The purpose of having a robotic dairy is not to mess with cows, to let them kind of be, but we're in there kind of tinkering. So making sure our timing's right, making sure the protocols are good, making sure our execution's good has been what we've been focusing on for the past 6 or 7 months.
Yeah. So different setups, different sites, and different challenges that come with whether it's managing milk quality, from that side of things, but also just managing that whole barn scenario. And so what are the times when you've had to call Josh in for some help?
Yeah, with the robots, it's a lot of moving parts. It's a lot of very technical work, and we try to be efficient with what we do and what we do ourselves. And unfortunately, we're not always capable of making the repairs. So they do a great job getting in and making sure that our robots are up and running as soon as they possibly can.
And Josh, I'm interested to hear from your perspective. How do you view your role, you and your team, with being that asset to a dairy or set of dairies like what Blaine is running, where they're doing a lot of stuff in house? Where do you see yourselves coming in?
We've got a pretty diverse team, a lot of different strengths. And as you look at our team, we're trying to be trusted advisors, be a part of their management team, whether it's on and off the field, whether it's through that phone, answering a few questions, laying out some protocols, providing some service programs, training their employees, and trying to limit some cost on their end. So at the end of the day, each dairy that we work with them on, we definitely have a different layout, from equipment to teat dips, seasonal changes. We talk about bedding all the time, looking at some different things that we might need to do in the parlor. Protocols from prepping, stripping cows, making sure pulsation is optimized. Blaine does a great job, and their team do a great job of prepping, setting up cows to milk out completely. It's pretty healthy environment already when you walk in there, but our job where we come in is making sure that equipment's working, and making sure we have the proper tools and the people to show up when he needs us.
You talk about this in terms of providing service and equipment, but truly, for each of you, people are such a core focus. Your team,
Yes.
your team. So I'm interested just from that, like, kind of bigger perspective of what does it really take in today's fast-paced dairy world to build a team on the dairy that can meet what is demanded, and to build a team on the service side, that industry side?
Oh man, it's attitude and aptitude, and you got to want to do this. I think at the end of the day is we have a lot of people that don't understand what we do, that come in from the outside, doing service work on a plant or refrigeration or you name it. And then they come on this side of the fence, and you ask them to work on a facility where, the environment changes. You've got manure on you. You've got the weather extremes all hours of the night. They never shut down. So creating a sense of ownership, providing the training, I always joke around when we're interviewing people. whether it's female or male. It's like your second wife or your husband. You know, you got to want to make sure that you have a good partnership there. You trust them. So, I mean, we definitely look for people character would be the number one thing. And, you know, we rely on our OEMs training. We rely on our own internal team. Like I said, we have a lot of expertise. So that's probably the coolest thing that we do is provide that training, give them a sense of ownership, let them take charge, you know, and try to create that relationship with the customer at the end of the day. So.
Yeah. And for you, Blaine, you're a big team guy.
It's not much different. There's two things you kind of hit on. Trust. So you have to trust your guys. You can't make every decision for everybody. So you need to communicate what your goals are and roughly how we're going to get there, and trust them to make the decision that gets you from point A to point B within your operating constraints. And sometimes they make the wrong decision. Sometimes I make the wrong decision. It's all goes with it. But then we'll kind of meet up. We'll powwow. We'll go over why that was or was not a good idea. And if it was a good idea, we'll try to replicate it. If it's a bad idea, we'll try not to make that mistake twice. And then just making sure that you have the right people. We've been very fortunate. We've not had much turnover, and the turnover that we've had has been mostly us determining, hey, this guy, he doesn't fit our culture. He doesn't get along with people. He's a bit of a toxic personality that's making things go worse. So that took a while. For years, we had trouble getting employees. This kind of predates me. But all the guys were afraid to ever fire anybody because they didn't want to have to do that job themselves. So we had some extra people come in, and we just built the culture up of, let's make sure they're right people, make sure they're good people, and let's make sure that they're trustworthy and they operate under the 3 rules that we function under, which are rule number 1, be on time. Number 2, do your best. And number 3, treat animals and others how you want to be treated. We check those 3 boxes, we're going to do well.
So those are the guiding principles.
Yeah.
That you brought now, that you communicate from ownership down through the layer.
Yeah, and a very proud moment to go with those rules is we have meetings between myself or ownership and the middle management group, but then we'll also have meetings with management and their teams. And I'll send it on those as support for the manager, let them operate and do their thing. But there's been multiple times where that middle manager has showed up, and first thing he writes on the whiteboard are the 3 rules of Hunter Edge. So it's a culture thing from the top down. And if we do those, we're going to do well.
Okay. So I got to ask you, how do you get it there to that point where without you having to say a word, your team is repeating those core principles, reflecting on them, teaching them to others?
You get your boots dirty for a while and you earn their trust. And if they realize that you'll get in the trenches with them and do the jobs that aren't any fun and that nobody wants to do, then they'll, after a couple things go right, they start to build up that trust, and they will buy into the program that you're setting up.
So I got to ask, is there a story that comes to mind where you had to get pretty dirty to make that happen?
It goes back to the very first story I was telling. I made that mess inadvertently, or at least it sure looked like I did. So it was a month of myself and Martine doing the hospital, and we went from running a 40 cow hospital to 100 cows, and there'd be 110, and we didn't have a hospital parlor at the time, and the milkers it'd be time for them to punch out and go home, so they'd go home, and it would just be the 2 of us there kind of fighting through it. So Martine and I got to know each other very well and understand what we were all about very quickly, and that was within 2 months of starting at this position. Most of those, and not to say it can't happen again tomorrow, but we've got a lot of the basics filled, and it's a few of the more complicated issues or the things that are out of your control that keep you up at night, like bird flu being one of them. That would be the next thing where we really got to know what we were made of, is getting through that together and making sure that we kept our cool, we made good decisions, and we got through that challenge with, as good of animal health as we possibly could, with as little of economic impact as it had on us. And that was a rough couple of months for everybody.
Do you think you've recovered?
Yeah. It took us, 3-4 weeks to be through 98% of it. And then we had a few months to get our milk back, and we basically had to dry everything off that had that decreased milk production because they weren't going to get that milk back. And after that, once things started to cab back in, we were on pretty good recovery since. Yep.
And repro?
It hurt for a bit. in the middle of bird flu, but that bounced back quickly as well.
It sounds like you were able to be quite resilient through a big challenge like that.
Yeah, I think we did okay.
And now you're on the other side of it.
Yep, now we're on the other side.
Yeah. And what you're, I think, alluding to here as well, Blaine, as we talk about something like that is, your team was equipped to take care of cows, right?
Yep.
And there's this concept that we've been talking about the last day or two as we've been out here in Evans, Colorado, and it's this theme of cow care, right? You've hosted this cow care extravaganza, 2 days that have been focused on education, training, getting some of your folks from your team and the dairy specialist team and putting them all in a room to be able to learn, to be able to grow together, and to be able to have some actionable items to take back to the farm. Josh, can you tell me a little bit about what this cow care theme and cow care team is about here?
You brought up the training. So going back to that, we had some service techs in this group. We had some guys that are new to the industry, some experienced people, and that have been around the block from a milk quality standpoint. But at the end of the day, it's just milking that cow out and get an overall understanding of the importance of why we do what we do, making sure equipment's optimized, not just graphing a pulsator and saying, hey, it's running, it's green, we can move on. It's making sure, are we milking that cow properly with the right phases, the teat-in vacuum, making sure the milk path's proper, getting that unit on and off, focusing on optimizing prep procedures, making sure skin conditioning's in check, doing teat-in evaluations. One of the cool things that I saw the last couple of days is a lot of guys that had no background in milk quality, but they've been a service guy for 20 years. Hey, they know they got to fix a drive or this vacuum pump's down. But what they didn't know was how it affected the cow, how it affected the bottom line for the producers, and so tying all that on together was pretty cool. And it just made them feel that they were more impactful.
And Blaine, for you, was this a blast from your past as a practicing veterinarian of having some hands-on training in milk quality?
It brought back a lot of memories. It was good to get back and see a lot of familiar faces, and also just, like you said, get my guys in with the dairy specialist guys, and then meet some of my mentors that kind of guided me along my journey from being a baby vet to moving up and doing a lot of parlor work throughout the country. And you mentioned teams before, and I thought, I consider dairy specialists or Bauer Ag to be part of our team. And if we can get these guys to talk and communicate and build up that relationship, I think it's going to be a win-win for everybody. They can share their tidbits of knowledge and really put the whole piece together and understand how a dairy functions, how a cow milks, and not only the physics behind it, but the biology behind it as well. And I don't remember who made the comment earlier, but if your dairy is doing well, it's a pretty boring job. It's monotonous. Same routine every day, nothing ever changes. And these guys, giving them the opportunity to come here and learn something different and maybe just provide a little bit of excitement and something new and allow them to continue growing was big. I think that's how we're going to retain people, is by continuing to give them opportunities to grow and learn. I think we should always be trying to train our replacement, train people to be better than we are. And if we continue to do that, we'll have a lot of success going forward.
And when you talk about, you just said something, Blaine, about training your replacement.
Yep.
So what does that look like for each of you?
I try to be an open book. And if the guys come with questions, try to have answers, sit down, have conversations. Some are very easy, some are very difficult conversations to have, but make sure that if they question you or have something, give you a reasoning behind it and let them know, hey, I know you were looking at it at this angle, but I'm a couple steps ahead already. This is what we're doing. And make sure that when we're doing that they have the opportunity to, I don't want to say argue with me, but they can challenge me and say, hey, I think this is not a great idea. Then we'll sit down and have that conversation too. So being open with everybody, making sure that it's a free space to speak out and kind of voice their opinion and that they will be heard. Whether we do their idea or follow their opinion or not, it's a whole different ballgame, but they will be heard and we'll talk about why.
So you create the space and the opportunity for those open conversations.
Yep.
And I'm kind of laughing a little bit because I had a chance last night to talk to one of your colleagues,
Yep.
Jesus, who manages Icon Dairy.
Yep.
And one of the things that he said in his comments about working with you, Blaine, was that you communicate very well,
Yep.
that you tell them everything and you call a lot. And
Yep.
he's like, I never have to wonder what's going on. Blaine's always telling.
Yep. If we can be clear with our messaging, that solves a lot of problems later. And we're not always good at that, but cell phones, Teams, emails, all that make it much easier to do. And then also it's a written record of what you did. Cause if I tell you to do something now, I might not remember in 25 minutes what exactly I said to do. So that kind of set in stone messaging provides a lot more clarity than in the past when you're doing everything over a phone or in person, and then you're busy and in the middle of stuff and you say the wrong thing. So I think, and Jesus is on the same side, a great communicator. He's not afraid to voice his opinion or ask additional questions if more questions need to be asked.
Sometimes we don't know how to ask for help. It's just you gotta jump and go. But the cool thing is, as I look at our cow care team, I mean, it's very dynamic. I mean, you're chasing a ghost half the time, whether you want to talk about somatic cells or mastitis or LPCs, SBCs, coli. At the end of the day, it's a number, but it's so impactful. I mean, it could be a cow, it could be people, it could be equipment, it could be in the environment. So we ask a lot of our employees. So being an open book, Blaine just said it, you got a well-diverse group. So just sitting there, going on farm, being able to communicate with the management team, the milkers, the herdsmen, and watch them put their heads together. They may not agree, but hey, we're going to go down that road because we do know it could be one of 5 things that are wrong, but we check boxes. So, and usually we just go back to the basics. We talked about that. Blaine and I met, 10 years ago on a farm, and everybody's looking for a silver bullet, including myself. But it's like, all right, let's slow down. Let's do the basics first.
And when you really think about where you each sit right now, what do you believe is the biggest challenge that you are each facing when it comes to the goal of producing the highest quality milk on your dairy and on the dairies you serve?
People have good days. People have bad days. People have short memories. People don't get along with other people. So trying to manage that and make sure that everyone, I don't care if you don't like each other when you leave work, but we're going to get along while we're here and when you get by things, and just managing personalities and approaching people differently. There's some employees where I can be very just black and white and have a 3-second conversation of, we need to do this differently, and we walk away and we're good. There's other employees that is going to take 5 or 10 minutes, and we have to make sure that we don't hurt their sense of ego and pride in what they do too much while doing that. And that's been the biggest challenge for me, is just learning how to navigate different personalities and make sure that we're all on the same page and working cohesively together.
You identified that as the biggest obstacle, the biggest challenge, the biggest threat.
Yep.
When we talk about milk quality, you say people. Josh, from your seat, how do you answer that question?
Well, I mean, it's hard to find people and educate people what we do for a living. So try to attract the right audience to come into this industry and provide work-life balance. These farmers are only getting larger and larger. So your limited touches, guys don't want to stop milking. So a lot of odd hours you've got to work. The biggest thing for me, I guess, is making sure that they're not just a number. I've had a few comments when I've been back, hey, dairyman doesn't even know who I am. They just think I show up, I fix this, and I leave. Well, we have to create that, so putting these tools in front of them, like the last 48 hours, NMC testing, getting a plaque, a card that says, hey, I'm a rock star. I know what I'm doing. I've gone to school. And making sure that dairyman knows that, hey, I have a trusted advisor on our team. He knows what he's doing. He's going to come to me. He's going to talk with me, and getting them involved on the next layer instead of just, hey, I'm broke down, show up on the farm, fix it, and leave. Creating synergies. And this is a relationship business. All those guys that we talked about earlier in the last couple of days that were together in the whole room with the producers too. It's about relationships and trust, and so just trying to pass that on to some of these the younger generations that's coming on, and getting that to where, hey, they're a friend, they're a customer, we're in this together. That's probably what's the most important thing to me.
And as we look ahead and look toward the future of where the dairy industry is going, Blaine, I'm going to direct this to you first. 5 years from now, what are the biggest advancements and changes that you foresee happening in the way that you do your job every day?
Yeah, I think the next 5 years are going to be wild. AI technology, all the computer software is getting better and better. I think we're going to be able to do a pretty good job understanding what's going very well, what's going very poorly from our computer. And I think the computer is probably going to tell us what issues we need to be looking at that day. It's going to allow us to function and operate on more sites and be a little bit more spread out. At the end of the day, the computer's not going to go fix those problems. It's only going to help us identify them, but we need to find them and have the right people in place to be able to look at that dashboard and be like, okay, let's get this addressed. We know we need to do A, B, and C, and this will fix itself. And then hopefully the AI technology will maybe alert us a day before of, hey, this is starting to go bad. We can intervene now. We won't have an issue. Some of the stuff that we're working on right now is very feed oriented. Our ability to deliver feed to the right spot for the right cows on the right day is going to improve dramatically. So in the summertime, cows eat differently in the barn than in the winter times. And if we have a cold wind, they eat differently than on a day that's calm. And with that technology to understand that, I think it will be able to tell, hey, we need to deliver X amount of feed to this X number of feet of the barn, and that's how we'll do well. Where now we're relying on a guy to make his best judgment, best prediction of, it seems like they've been eating more here, and they try to do their best job, but then you go into the barn at 9 p.m. and half the bunk's without feed because you guessed wrong. So we'll be able to eliminate a lot of those mistakes and just do a better job keeping feed in front of the cows all day.
So really dialing in on that precision feeding on a large scale operation.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Oh, that's an exciting future.
Very exciting. Yeah. So it'll be cool to see what the next 3, 4, 5 years bring.
I don't know that you're going to do a whole lot more with milking equipment other than how do we build a dashboard that we can, visualize, look at, and, get to that farm in that short period that we have to work on that farm, So data, I think, more than anything would be crucial for us to help be a better service to him. Like I said, you got 45 minutes to, shut down a dairy. I need you over here. I need 4 hours, but you're only going to give me 45 minutes. So the more information we have, we can help service these guys out.
And Blaine, for you, when you were in your former life as a vet and also focusing a lot on milk quality, you spent a lot more time learning that stuff, knowing that stuff, keeping up on that stuff. But now you rely on Josh and people like him to bring it to you because your world's changed now, right?
Yep. Yeah, you can't know everything all the time, and you rely on your team to fill you in on the bullet points. There's only so many hours in the day, and when you are focused on other things, eventually someone pops in and they're better at it than you ever were. So you have to let them do it and do what's best for the dairy.
But one thing I've seen, been exposed to a lot of things across the U.S. These farmers, these producers, they're getting larger. They're larger, trying to do things more in-house. It's not necessarily because a dealer's doing a bad job or the veterinarian or the nutritionist. It's just that penny's getting a little bit harder to make. That's our biggest challenge as I look at the future, because dairies are consolidating at the end of the day. So where do we fit in that equation other than selling you parts and putting in equipment or doing remodels? Well, mastitis isn't going away, but the expertise to troubleshoot, fine tune, work with vets, nutritionists, producers, the equipment manufacturer on making sure all components are working in one, united, so that's where we fit.
I want to piggyback off of what you were just saying, Josh, and ask you, Blaine, how do you decide what you do in-house and what you outsource at the size of the scale that you're at?
That's a good question. I think you just have to know your limitations and know when you're kind of over your skis. We like to try to do as much as we can in-house and keep experts on our own staff that are able to do a lot of this stuff in a timely manner. And, sometimes you hope that if it's their dairy that they work for and it's their thing, that maybe they have a bit more ownership of the process and maybe do a little bit better job. We need to find that good middle ground where we all have a good, sustainable business and we're all able to take care of each other and not be enemies, not be completely trying to cut them out. Then one day hey, I've got a problem. They go, well, you said you were done with us, so we're not going to come help you either. So building that good relationship and that trust and the homeostasis between the two is probably the challenge that we're dealt with. And like I said, we've spent a lot of time on the phone discussing this, and it's all been really theoretical, but hopefully we're getting there. And I think this week is a good step towards it.
Yeah. And you're both doing similar work from a similar place, just in different capacities, but yet you collide and combine to be able to problem solve and to grow together.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, gentlemen. You just heard from Blaine Nicks with Jager Ag and Joshua Stroud from Bauer Ag. Their insights are a reminder that performance on the dairy starts with the people, sharp processes, and a commitment to milk quality. I'm Peggy Coffeen, and thanks for listening to the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. Don't forget to follow, rate, and share wherever you get your podcasts. As always, keep on growing, keep on learning, and up-leveling your dairy. This episode is brought to you by Bauer Ag. Bauer Ag is the parent company uniting the Dairy Solutions Group, dairy specialists, and ag property solutions. Together, they strive to elevate farm operations through out-of-the-box thinking and problem-solving, new technology, and a network of locations positioned for growth. Find more information in the show notes to contact Bauer Ag.